Take Nickelodeon's PAW Patrol, which features Chase, a German Shepherd police dog. The show's official Twitter page on the receiving end of a torrent of criticism.
I think it's absolutely absurd that they are coming for a children's cartoon.
It's PAW Patrol.
The cancel culture movement may now be coming for PAW Patrol.
When you start seeing cancellations of such things like PAW Patrol,
they believe there should not be police, peace, or even PAW Patrol.
The PAW Patrol has also been canceled.
PAW Patrol?
If that goes, I'm moving into New Zealand. Chase, I guess, is the lead character. A German Shepherd police dog.
My daughter loves Chase.
Fire and prosecute Chase.
I have a dog named Chase. Defund the PAW Patrol.
PAW Patrol.
PAW Patrol.
PAW Patrol.
PAW Patrol. PAW Patrol. PAW Patrol. PAW Patrol.
The internet needs me. All right, I've got my clown makeup on. If we're gonna do this, let's do it right. Let's talk about PAW Patrol. This video is brought to you by my patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to support this channel and videos like this, consider becoming a patron today. In the wake of the George Floyd protests about 2 years ago, God, time is an acid trip, a lot of people started thinking more critically about the police. As people were confronted with a brutal image of the police across the country, I think a lot of well-meaning liberals started asking themselves, how could I be so oblivious? Well, one answer was right there, waiting if you just changed the channel. As it turns out, 60% of primetime TV in 2019 was about the police, and it was a largely very positive portrayal. So people started making noise, and there were real consequences. Cops was canceled, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine scrapped its scripts in order to address changing events. Remember that? We all got together and fixed policing, and everything was better. As it turns out, there's a lot more work to be done when it comes to police reform. Where are all these bad apples coming from? Oh yeah, and they're making cops again anyway. Perhaps part of the reason we haven't fixed policing in America yet has to do with the fact that our understanding of policing is ingrained in us from a very young age. This is part of the reason why activists and other people with eyeballs called out PAW Patrol, the animated children's show in which a child billionaire provides emergency and police services to the town of Adventure Bay using a pack of talking puppies.
Don't worry, Mayor. No job is too big, no pup is too small.
Thanks, Ryder.
PAW Patrol, to the lookout.
Ryder needs us.
All right, PAW Patrol is on a roll.
Okay, I mean, the real reason people went after it was because it was really fun to tweet things like, all dogs go to heaven except for the class traitors in the PAW Patrol. Quarantine was really hard, okay? The vast majority of PAW Patrol criticism falls under the category of memes and jokes.
Who is in charge of this organization? A child?
Yes! The PAW Patrol is run by a 10-year-old boy named Ryder. Who is this kid? It's me!
But I also think there's a pretty reasonable kernel of truth undergirding the idea to go after PAW Patrol. Maybe, just maybe, this show and its police dog named Chase, yeah, Chase, like what you absolutely don't want a German Shepherd doing to you, chasing you, maybe this show is giving kids a warped vision of the police. There was an obvious and predictable reactionary backlash.
This has become so crazy that protesters are coming for PAW Patrol. PAW Patrol. You stupid asses. PAW Patrol? Are you kidding me? PAW Patrol?
PAW Patrol? Really? First, they came for cops, and I did not speak out because I don't like reality TV. The kids show? Cancel culture is out of control. Then they came for PAW Patrol, and there was no one left to speak for me. Aren't you taking things a bit too seriously? Can't anything be fun anymore? First off, no. No fun allowed. I hate fun. Clearly, I am a very serious person. But I think there are real reasons to discuss PAW Patrol, and not just because I made it a goal for my patrons on Patreon. PAW Patrol is massively popular. The show is watched in over 160 countries, and as of fall 2018, had resulted in over $7 billion in retail sales. Nielsen ratings indicate that it is the most watched show among preschool-age children. Hell, Chase was in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in 2017. In 2021, the franchise launched its first feature film, raking in over $144 million. They even got young Sheldon to voice Chase. Go into the toy aisle in any department store, and you'll see that PAW Patrol isn't just a kids' TV show. It's an institution. An empire that has annihilated its competition and bent the market to its will.
Hi, I'm Kristen Bell, and I am here to spread the good news about PAW Patrol to fellow parents. Come on. Hey, Susan. Remember me? I'm the one that was talking about being a paw rent at Caleb's soccer match last week.
Yeah, that's how I almost missed him score the winning goal.
Well, clear your afternoon and also the next 5 years, because the PAW Patrol years are here.
Kristen, why? Why, Kristen? The PAW Patrol wiki inexplicably has nearly 11,000 pages filled with every single detail you could possibly want about the show, moderated by people with a baffling devotion to these pups. By the way, they are not happy about their show coming under scrutiny for its police messaging, which is almost enough of a reason to make this video in the first place. That amount of reach alone is worth examining. Before you remember that the website isn't even moderated by the show's target audience. Children, unless there's like 6-year-olds just moderating. I guess Gen Alpha is supposed to be very tech savvy. Kids these days. It might seem silly to focus as much energy as I'm about to in this video on a kids show, but I think it's extra important to think critically about media that is consumed by an audience who is not yet old enough to question the representations they are receiving. Basically, what I'm saying is,
Won't somebody please think of the children?
So, I watched PAW Patrol for the children, and I'm here to report that PAW Patrol sucks. It sucks so hard. It's so bad. There's a lot of talk online and on cable news these days about grooming, specifically targeted at the LGBTQ community. Right-wing reactionaries are quick to label any kind of performance of gender or sexuality outside the cishet paradigm as an attempt to influence and indoctrinate children. But what about the grooming we already subject our children to? The ideas and structures that are hoisted upon them.
Don't have sex, because you will get pregnant and die. Don't have sex in the missionary position. Don't have sex standing up. Just don't do it, promise?
We should think critically about all the messages we implicitly send the young and impressionable, even if they're very mainstream. And here, we're going to look at the ideas they are getting about the police from PAW Patrol. Welcome to Copaganda, a series of videos exploring the portrayal of the police on television and how that portrayal has shaped our understanding of who the police are and what they should be. We've covered how the LAPD helped start the cop show genre by providing creative input and censorship on Dragnet, before breaking down Blue Bloods, Brooklyn Nine-Nine twice, The Wire, The Shield, Marvel Superheroes, Lucifer, Spooky Cop Shows TM, and today, it's time we take aim at these mutts.
These paws uphold the laws.
And before you go telling me, well, actually, there are a lot of different pups. Marshall is a firefighter, Rocky's on recycling, Sky is some sort of Tom Cruise-style pilot, and Rubble does construction, I guess?
What can I say? I'm a construction pup.
Hey, I'm fucking Rubble. I'm a construction pup. What are you gonna do about it? What? I'm rubbling here.
I'm a tough pup.
I hear your point. PAW Patrol isn't ostensibly about the police, but it's about the police. It's called PAW Patrol. According to trademarks filed by Spin Master, PAW is actually an acronym for Protect and Wag. Over at the blog The Y-Axis, Christopher Ingraham tracked all pup deployments and found that Chase was by far the most deployed pup. Chase was the star of the film, so respectfully, yeah, PAW Patrol's about the police.
Actually, sir, I'm a puppy.
A baby dog? That's even worse.
So, let's do it. Let's do this. Let's do the PAW Patrol video. And if this costume is any indication, we're gonna do it hard. We're gonna have some fun and really overanalyze the shit out of PAW Patrol, but then we're gonna transition into what kids might actually be taking out of this show. And then we're going to finish by tying it all together and talking about the real indoctrination apparatus of PAW Patrol. It might not be what you think. While PAW Patrol certainly does a lot of police propaganda, that's not what I find most sinister about it. And that's what we call in the business a teaser. There's no shortage of hot Paw Patrol takes on the internet. As it turns out, if you take sleep-deprived parents and then play a poorly animated cartoon with lifeless music and even lifelessier dogs on loop like some sort of clockwork orange torture device in front of them, they're going to turn to the internet in an attempt to make sense of what they've just seen. The problem is that there is no sense to be made. It's like watching 2001: A Space Odyssey and claiming that you know what that trippy ending is all about. You don't. You're lying. Stop lying. Stop. It's just a Windows Media Visualizer. That's all it is. The world of Paw Patrol similarly makes no fucking sense. Paw Patrol takes place in Adventure Bay, a place I hesitate to call a city because there are no people to be seen anywhere.
As you can see, beautiful Adventure Bay is known for their sunny skies, sandy beaches, and a large population of friendly people.
Fucking where? Are they all stuffed into some sort of prison underneath Paw Patrol Tower? Because of what I imagine are cost-cutting measures, nothing is ever animated that doesn't need to be. There's no traffic, there are barely any cars, there's no one in the background walking around. It's as if someone hired those Netflix is a joke people to animate one of those city-themed rugs on the floor of the loneliest kid in existence. One of the key fascinations on the internet is who lives in this town, and how do they raise enough revenue to pay for the incredibly advanced technology the Paw Patrol utilizes? These dogs are essentially cyborgs. They have everything. In fact, approximately 10% of every episode is dedicated to them jumping into their Voltron vehicles. Where is this money coming from? According to calculations from the Jameson and Juice Box's blog, quote, the roughly 17 responsible tax-paying citizens of Adventure Bay are each paying $2.7 million annually in local income and property taxes.
With all of our tax dollars paying for all these cockapoos jetpacks, we now have the worst schools in the state. This is my 17-year-old son. He can barely read.
I can read. I just don't know what sounds vowels make when they're next to other letters in a line.
If it's not tax money funding the Paw Patrol, then their human leader Ryder is some sort of child Bruce Wayne, keeping an ever-watchful eye on his Adventure Bay from his surveillance tower. Who is he? Where are his parents? Is the Paw Patrol a front for drug running? Perhaps this is a Planet of the Apes situation. Or maybe something darker. Like much darker. The simplest explanation for Ryder's power and wealth is that he's a 10-year-old boy, and to an audience of preschoolers, that essentially makes him a god. I mean, he appears to have his commercial driver's license in the movie, despite his feet not being able to reach the pedals.
Paw Patrol is on a roll. Road trip!
Chase, this is clearly underage driving. That's a crime. Arrest Ryder. My favorite genre of Paw Patrol critique is when people apply the most academic versions of Marxist theory, which is definitely not what I'm doing here. For some reason, these articles are almost always from the UK or Ireland, and they take this analysis very seriously.
The central task of the police, according to classical Foucaultian analysis, has also been to thwart and foil the possibility of revolution, the possibility of transgressing the order of capital. For the bourgeoisie, the main danger against which it had to be protected, that which had to be avoided at all cost, was armed uprising, was the armed people, was workers taking to the streets in assault against the government. Paw Patrol Mighty Pups, the first theatrical reiteration from the popular animated franchise, is the latest shadowy attempt to normalize state-sponsored thuggery.
Paw Patrol is Giorgio Agamben's nightmare, a country in which a permanent state of emergency exists, under which governments have limitless power to rule unilaterally. There is no society or even commerce in Paw Patrol, only the relentless, unthinking force of the police state, ostensibly responding to a never-ending crisis. It is the most influential work of fascist art since Ezra Pound.
A blaring libertarian nightmare in which some gadget-mad puppies are conscripted into a privatized paramilitary unit of first responders. At the behest of a billionaire child king, they pilot rescue crafts for undisclosed fees to the terrified citizens of Adventure Bay. It's as if Elon Musk bought Port Talbot and took full control of its emergency services.
Honestly, they're not wrong. I mean, based, as the kids might say. But I think these things are mostly jokes. They're fun to point out in a video like this, but I don't think they're egregious offenses. These ideas are likely to be over the heads of children. I'm not sure kids are going to grow up thinking this is a sustainable local tax policy any more than they're going to think dogs can actually talk. By the way, you're telling me they have talking dogs capable of intelligent communication, potentially one of the most groundbreaking scientific discoveries of the 21st century, and we're putting them to work as glorified janitors cleaning up the messes of Adventure Bay's incompetent adults?
Oh, come, Chickaletta! Good gracious, Chickaletta! I gotcha, Chicky Bird! Uh-oh! Ah! Thanks, Scott!
But if we step away from a CinemaSins style analysis, I think we can begin to see the contours of real criticism. The PAW Patrol exists anywhere and everywhere. They'll conduct missions in the neighboring town of Foggy Bottom, and in the film they relocate to Adventure City, erecting a tower with a laughably large Hot Wheels slide to launch their brand new vehicles. God, there are always more vehicles. Rocky, you're the conservation pup. What's the PAW Patrol's carbon footprint?
Don't lose it, reuse it. Green means go. Why trash it when you can stash it? That's perfect.
No, Marshall, it's not perfect. We have to reach net zero by 2050, and time is running out. My point is that the PAW Patrol has universal jurisdiction. They're not a real police department or fire department, they're just riders' dogs. So they're beholden to no one or place. In the film, they move to Adventure City to fight the policies of the newly elected Mayor Humdinger, which feels pretty undemocratic.
Humdinger was just elected mayor. Humdinger? He's the worst mayor in the history of mayors. And that's being generous.
You're telling me this guy's a disaster. He's going to destroy the whole city. Please, we need your help. Come quickly.
And look, I don't expect a kid's cartoon to go into the logistics of police oversight or jurisdiction like it's The Wire. By the way, check out my copaganda episode on The Wire. It's wiry. But I do think that this show gives children the sense that omnipresent police are the way things are and the way things ought to be. The show justifies this omnipresence by portraying Adventure Bay's Mayor Goodway as an absolutely unhinged leader. She's constantly frazzled and so useless at running her city that she can't even hold an election without the help of this 10-year-old and his pack of wild dogs.
I think putting it next to Town Hall might be nice. What do you think, Mayor Goodway?
I don't know. I just can't seem to make up my mind about anything today.
She's more invested in her pet chicken, Chickaletta, than anything else.
That's it, Alex! Become the chicken!
An absolutely moronic bird that constantly is trying to get itself killed. And sometimes Mayor Goodway channels her internal Chickaletta, putting herself in danger to save the stupid bird.
No need for ladders! Come on, Chickaletta! Come to Mama! I got you!
Chase, you're net!
This incompetent portrayal of Mayor Goodway is a little extra cringy when you note that she's the most prominent woman on the show and the only black person. This was made especially clear to me when I watched the live version, and the actress playing her was tasked with imitating the mayor's animated mannerisms.
What happened? Well, we were on our way to the starting line. Chickaletta chased a worm up to the tippy top of a cart filled with pumpkins, and now she can't get herself down. Oh, no!
Look, guys, I told you the show was terrible. I told you. The other politician on the show is the evil Humdinger, a literal mustache-twirling, top-hat-wearing mayor from the neighboring town of Foggy Bottom.
Oh, how come no one ever goes to Foggy Bottom? Okay, it's foggy, and boring, and foggy.
He's always getting up to mischief, coming over to Adventure Bay to steal things or win meaningless trophies with his cat pack. Get it? Because cats are the opposite of dogs.
Now to head to Adventure Bay and create some kitty chaos. More like puppy pandemonium.
I can't believe I really did this video. Look, I'm not docking any points for the show making it clear that he's a villain by making him mustache twirling and having cats. This is a kid's show after all. But in concert with Mayor Goodway, all government officials on the show are either nefarious or useless. which plays into the show's privatization of emergency services through Ryder's pups. In the movie, this is pretty clear. The pups suit up like they're Iron Man. You know, the guy who famously said this.
I have successfully privatized world peace.
I see what you're up to, Ryder. You little Tony Stark, Bruce Wayne fuckstick. You're gonna try and buy Twitter next, aren't you? No, wait. Ryder would have actually saved those kids in Thailand. Still, I got my eye on you, you little Canadian fuck. Dr. Liam Kennedy of King's University College wrote an article that created some waves in 2020 called "Whenever There's Trouble, Just Yelp for Help. Crime, Conservation, and Corporatization in PAW Patrol." In it, he details the way the show continually reaffirms faith in private enterprises with no oversight, like the PAW Patrol, and undercuts faith in democratic solutions. Quote,
"Crime in the fictional town of Adventure Bay is committed predominantly by literal outsiders, migrants, and individuals visiting from neighboring communities, and punished through social exclusion or hard labor. In this world, politicians are presented as incompetent or unethical, and the state as either incapable of delivering or unwilling to provide basic social services to citizens. Indeed, government officials depend on the PAW Patrol Corporation to investigate crime, rescue non-human animals in states of distress, and recycle. In suggesting to audiences that we can and should rely on private enterprise to combat crime and conserve, PAW Patrol encourages complicity in a global capitalist system that reproduces inequalities and causes environmental harms."
Huh?
That's a lot of words. That's a lot of words and a lot of thought, that possibly more thought than was put into the making of the show itself. But I think there's something to be said about deconstructing the worldview that a TV show is hitting kids over the head with. And I mean hitting them over the head. This show is so incredibly repetitive.
All right, Paw Patrol is on roll!
These are all critiques worth thinking about, but I also think it's a little weird to focus on PAW Patrol as the flagship show here. Children's TV is kind of notorious for having super fucked up storylines and messaging. Take Thomas the Tank Engine, a show that literally sealed a train behind bricks until his fire died because he didn't want to work.
And Gordon would say, "Poop, poop, poop, serves you right." Poor Henry had no steam to answer. His fire had gone out.
And then, to add insult to injury, narrator Ringo Starr goes,
"But I think he deserved his punishment. Don't you?"
I mean, that's literally an Edgar Allan Poe nightmare. Whenever anyone stepped out of line on Thomas the Tank Engine, they were killed. Like killed. A bus was turned into a hen house.
He never learned sense. He's a hen house now.
A train into a generator.
He turned him into a generator. He's still out there behind our shed. He'll never move again.
And in one case, some carts were literally ripped in half.
I don't like this. Oh! Well, Scruffy. I'm coming apart!
They just ripped that dude in half. For what it's worth, I think that this is far more explicitly authoritarian in a way kids are more likely to feel immediately, whereas PAW Patrol doesn't feel authoritarian. It just quickly becomes apparent that these people live in a neoliberal police state if you think about it with any kind of understanding about the actual world.
Call the police, call the fire department, call everybody.
You're in Adventure Bay. Here, we call the PAW Patrol.
While PAW Patrol does send a lot of overarching messages about policing and privatization and government that kids will absorb over time, I think they're much more likely to absorb specifics in the immediate. I like how Danny DiPlacido described it in his article, The Problem with PAW Patrol, for Forbes. Quote, "I don't think that young audiences watching Ryder and his pups rescue a man from a burning building will come to the conclusion that their local fire station should be replaced by a private corporation profiting from the labor of trained dogs. But the show is certainly teaching them something." So, what are the more immediate takeaways? What are the ideas that the show is going to put into the minds of its audience that are easy to understand and equally harmful? In a word, dogs. Look, I love dogs. I love dogs very, very much. Big dog guy over here. My stand-in,
Paw Patrol.
a dog.
Paw Patrol.
be there on the double.
My director, also a dog.
That's a rep.
I mean, look at me. Chances are you love dogs too. Humans and dogs have a pretty special connection in the animal kingdom, one that dates back millennia.
And since the friendliest wolves got more scraps, over generations, the wolves got tamer and tamer, transforming into an entirely new species. Dogs replaced the survival skills they lost with new ones, mainly pulling on our heartstrings.
Duh. Basically, dogs have evolved in a way to make them cute to us. And much like dogs evolved to seem cuter and cuddlier to humans, the creators of PAW Patrol reworked their designs of the central pups to do the same. According to a feature in the Globe and Daily Mail in 2017, quote, in early sketches, the pups' hind legs are hinged, as real dogs are. In the final product, they're straight. It makes them more puppy-like. What's wrong with dogs being cute, you might reasonably ask? It's a kids show. Of course they're going to be cute. Dogs are a powerful empathic device for us, and I think that is a reason we should take seriously the depiction of Chase. Besides, using cute animals to soften the image of law enforcement is a storied American tradition. In 2016, after the death of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri brought increased scrutiny on the police, the St. Louis County Police Department released a pinup calendar of their cops posing with kittens and puppies. Following the death of Eric Garner in New York City, the NYPD started feeding stories to the New York Post about cops saving kittens, the first occurring roughly 2 weeks after Garner's death and continuing routinely throughout the subsequent years. Hell, the NYPD even got a story in the New York Times about a kitten being saved by the Strategic Response Group, a unit that was formed in 2015 to fight terrorism, and since has been used to crack down on protests.
So the police create these, this is not just NYPD, a lot of police officers, in an effort to, again, help their image, right? This is a sort of general public relations thing. They want to focus on and emphasize stories that involve them being super cute with puppies and kittens.
Well, yeah, all the kind of emphasis on cops and canine units are seen like, oh, look at those adorable German Shepherds. And it's like, well, not everyone thinks they're adorable.
Right.
Especially when they're attacking protesters.
Go to any law enforcement social media page and you'll see dozens of pictures of police dogs, not only working alongside the police, but also being deliberately used as the cutesy face of the police. Here they are on the Border Patrol's Instagram. Here they are on the FBI's page. And here are a bunch of cute pups who are going to grow up to work for the CIA. It's a really pleasant and effective way of getting you to forget about all the dogs the US has used to torture people over the years. It's like eye bleach, but for war crimes. And PAW Patrol is an entire TV empire dedicated to this idea. How can Chase the police dog ever be wrong when he looks so cute?
That's so sweet. Another job well done.
But presenting police dogs as cute is a facade used to paper over horrific acts of brutality and oppression inflicted by those dogs. Let's look at the two roles police dogs primarily serve: to attack and to detect. Detection dogs are what we call drug-sniffing dogs. This idea is all over Chase's character. Despite the fact that the entire PAW Patrol is made up of dogs, a species of animal universally famous for their excellent sense of smell, it's always Chase who is assigned sniffing duties whenever there is a missing creature to be tracked down.
Let's find out what's really going on. Chase, sniff it out. I'm on it, Ryder.
I'm rumbling too hard, I can't sniff for anything.
We even see Marshall the fire pup following scents in some episodes, so it's unclear why Chase is always assigned sniffer duty. In fact, Chase is so locked into this role that Ryder has him use his nose despite the fact that he is allergic to a bunch of things, and they can send him into sneezing fits, which seems kinda cruel, but also fuck that cop dog.
Where'd that yarn come from? Achoo!
Chili powder?
Worse. Achoo! Kittens. Chase is on the... Achoo! Achoo!
Yeah, you sneeze, you little propaganda monster. Hope your eyes get all watery. Because PAW Patrol steers away from showing the police use of force, Chase's ability to find things is really the main thing he brings to the team. That's why in Season 2, they give him a bunch of super spy equipment, like a spy drone, which is super normal and not at all emblematic of a police surveillance state.
Rough drone!
This fits into our collective understanding of detection dogs, that they can find drugs or bombs or any other kind of contraband that humans wouldn't be able to detect. And this is an understanding that has been institutionally reinforced. In 2013, the Supreme Court decided on Florida v. Harris, a case that addressed whether a dog was reliable enough to establish probable cause. In the unanimous opinion, Justice Elena Kagan stated that, quote, if a bona fide organization has certified a dog after testing his reliability in a controlled setting, a court can presume, subject to any conflicting evidence offered, that the dog's alert provides probable cause to search. So, there you have it. Detection dogs must be pretty accurate, right? I mean, if the Supreme Court says they're good enough to essentially provide a warrant to search you or your vehicle, they must rarely be wrong, right? Otherwise, that'd surely be a Fourth Amendment violation, right? I think you could probably guess where I'm going with this. No, they're not that accurate at all. A number of studies have demonstrated that detection dogs are wrong all the time. An analysis of the Illinois State Police Drug Dog Unit in 2007 and 2008 found, quote, that only 25.7% of the drug dog alerts resulted in police finding a measurable quantity of illicit drugs. In Australia, only 4,085 searches out of 15,779 searches in 2010 resulted in any drugs being found, a false positive rate of 74%. Time and time again, studies into drug-sniffing dogs prove that they are wildly inconsistent and unreliable, often because they're responding to the biases of their handlers.
We showed the video to Auburn veterinarian Professor Lawrence Myers. He's a nationally recognized expert on how detection dogs work. The first thing he noticed, there's no microphone on the handler, raising all sorts of questions.
Is the handler giving any audible cues to the dog, or just simply saying sit?
So in this case, we don't hear what he's saying to the dog.
Correct, not a clue.
Myers also noticed that the officer keeps his hands to himself on the passenger side, but as he rounds the car, that suddenly changes.
The officer pointed at the spot where the dog eventually sat before the dog sat.
A 2011 study from researcher Lisa Litt tested both handlers and their dogs by leading the humans to believe that there were hidden targets present, when in fact, there were none. Despite no targets being present, dogs alerted multiple times, especially where researchers had indicated to their handlers that a scent might be likely. As Radley Balco wrote in the Washington Post, quote, packages designed to trick handlers into thinking there were drugs inside them were much more likely to trigger false alerts than packages designed to trick the dogs. Police dog handlers and trainers responded to that study by refusing to cooperate with further research. Many drug dogs then are not alerting to the presence of drugs, but to their handlers' suspicions about the presence of drugs.
Real quick, my name's Officer Costello.
Okay.
I have a narcotics detection dog.
Why is that?
Why is that?
Yeah, why is
That's what I get paid to do.
But why is that here?
Well, I'm not going to go into details, all right?
But I would like to understand why. I would like to know why.
Go to law school and you can figure it all out.
And this touches on the reason dogs are man's best friend. Yeah, we think they're cute as heck, but dogs also have formed a deeply empathetic relationship with humans, one where they can communicate emotions with us.
Our relationship works because dogs are extremely good at reading us. This is a tube of fearful sweat, and this is a typical reaction. The dog's heart rate speeds up and it scampers away to a corner. And this dog is smelling happy sweat. It starts wagging its tail and jumps as if it wants to play. The pups seem to mirror the emotions the volunteers had felt.
As it turns out, a dog's ability to support us emotionally can also lead them to alert when they can sense their owner wants them to alert. And on top of that, it's up to police departments to determine what an alert is.
Where's he? In there? Okay.
What'd you do? Dude, that was fucking bull. You pointed to it, your dog did not alert.
It's not a great system. But most people don't know this about drug sniffing dogs, including, apparently, the Supreme Court. And why does this myth exist? Well, I think media, like PAW Patrol, can help contribute to that perspective. PAW Patrol shows kids that dogs work with the police, that they're great sniffers and can find anything. And left unchallenged, we're incredibly likely to trust dogs because, well, that's exactly how they've evolved. The show reinforces these common misconceptions about drug dogs. And by also providing a cute and cuddly face to canines, the show promotes the idea that they are friendly and just. Which leads us to attack dogs. In 2020, the Marshall Project, a nonprofit journalism organization specializing in criminal justice, filed a report called When Police Violence is a Dog Bite, an investigative piece chronicling hundreds of dog bites on suspects in cities across the country. They found that, quote, dog bites cause more hospital visits than any other use of force by police, and quoted medical researchers who described police dog bites as more like shark attacks than nips from a family pet. They found that roughly 3,600 Americans are admitted into emergency rooms from police dog attacks every year. There are faces ripped off, tracheas punctured, carotid arteries sliced, and lost testicles. They also found that, quote, court records show cases often start as minor incidents. A problem with a license plate, a claim of public urination, a man looking for a lost cat. Although some departments like Seattle, Oakland, California, and St. Paul, Minnesota now have strict criteria about when dogs can bite, many continue to give officers wide discretion. And if you've made it this far into the video, this probably isn't going to shock you, but dog bite victims are disproportionately black. This sadly makes sense. Police canines come from an indisputably racist history. Dogs have long been used in the Americas to attack black people, whether it was during the Haitian Revolution, to hunt down escaped slaves, or to fight against those protesting for civil rights. Officials will tell you that dog bites don't tear and just last a couple seconds, but video and photo evidence would argue otherwise. Now, I've been doing this whole copaganda series for a little while now. Not to toot my own horn, but it's been happening. I've read some pretty horrific stuff about police brutality and institutional corruption. So when I tell you that this is some of the most stomach-churning shit I've ever read, just know that those are my bona fides. Here's a content warning if you want to skip ahead past, although I do think that if you do have the stomach for it, it's important to see just how awful these encounters often can be. Jeffrey Ryans, a black man in Salt Lake City, had dogs sicked on him while he was kneeling down with his hands in the air as police responded to a call about a domestic disturbance. According to the report, quote, Ryans has suffered nerve and tendon damage, infections, and has difficulty walking. Doctors have not ruled out the possibility that he will need to have his leg amputated. Jason Anglero-Wyrick, an unarmed black man in Sonoma County, was tased into submission when police set a dog on him and took a fist-sized hole out of his calf. Or Deborah Hooper, a white woman who was caught stealing a nail file and a few lipsticks from a drugstore. A sheriff's deputy took this as an opportunity to search her car and tried to arrest her for drug possession. According to the Marshall Project, quote, as they struggled, the deputy pushed a special button on his belt, releasing his German Shepherd. The dog latched onto Hooper's head, ripping off large chunks of her scalp and biting down into her skull. 14 years later, Hooper is still undergoing surgeries. Doctors grafted skin from her thigh onto her head. They filled water balloons and stuck them under her remaining scalp to stretch the skin. She said she became a hermit and has been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. For almost all of these victims, there's little to no accountability or compensation. From the Marshall Project again, quote, in many parts of the country, criminal suspects can't bring federal claims if they plead guilty or are convicted of a crime relating to the biting incident. And even when victims can bring cases, lawyers say they struggle because jurors tend to love police dogs, something they call the Lassie effect. So yeah, it matters that Chase is cute, and it matters that he's a cute police dog. We love our police dogs. Sometimes they receive more respect and dignity than the humans they attack. Hell, police were found justified in their killing of a man in Pittsburgh because the guy stabbed their dog as it was attacking him. Chase, thankfully, doesn't really fight anyone on PAW Patrol. He has some spy gear, but he mostly sticks to setting up traffic cones and using his handy-dandy net to save people from falling. Which does beg the question, why does he have a net when he literally never arrests anyone? I mean, there's not even really any crime in Adventure Bay, just some hilarious hijinks.
Look, it's a new forest creature. A purple bush-hiding humdinger.
Oh, could someone help me?
Here you go, Mayor Humdinger.
Oh, good, you found your guitar.
But again, that's part of the problem. Chase is a German Shepherd police dog named, well, Chase. He's cute and cuddly and nice and harmless. He looks like a real police dog, but he doesn't act like one. The police use dogs to attack people, get easy probable cause, and to massage their own image.
What we need is for Chase, the good German Shepherd, to apparently be chasing down like only puppies of color. Like that's what we actually need in order to reflect the evils of America's policing system.
Okay, no, Ben. I don't think that PAW Patrol should have Chase only harass puppies of color, even if it would be more accurate. But I also don't think that means it's okay for the show to use Chase to make police dogs look cute.
Just like Mighty Pup Chase, there are real-life police pups.
Chase is on the case.
Police pups use their powerful sense of smell to help officers on the case. And when they're not upholding the law, they're always there to lend a helping paw.
The police clearly see dogs as a tool to oppress and harass people, especially people of color. This is really obvious when you look at how they treat their own dogs and dogs in the community. The leading cause of death amongst police dogs? Heat exhaustion, especially from being left in a squad car on a hot day. What's worse, police shoot dogs all the time, particularly, and stop me if you've heard this before, in Black and brown communities. According to an analysis done by Slate, between 2010 and 2016, LAPD officers were involved in 417 shootings and shot dogs in over a quarter of the cases. Among the LA County Sheriff's Department, dogs were shot in 45.6% of their 406 shooting incidents over roughly the same time period. And where did those shootings take place? Well, let's look at some maps. Here's a map of all of those dog shooting incidents. And here's where the white people live, and here's where the black people live, and here's where Hispanic people live, and here's where the median household income is low. Huh, would you look at that? My first takeaway is that Los Angeles, like many American cities, is still incredibly segregated. My second takeaway is that if Ryder was black and ran into actual police, that would probably be the end of the PAW Patrol. There are other dogs in the PAW Patrol other than Chase. Yeah, he's the main character, and we're talking about police dogs. What about those other dogs? What's going on there? Well, I'd argue that stationing Chase next to those other dogs is actually the show's most powerful device for framing the police. One that frames the police as part of the same class as other first responders. As I mentioned before, there isn't really any crime on PAW Patrol. In the movie, Chase arrests Mayor Humdinger for dog napping?
Mayor Humdinger! You are under arrest for gross negligence, public endangerment, and dog napping.
You can't arrest me. I'm the mayor.
They also can't arrest him because he's not in their jurisdiction, but whatever. This is really the only time I can think of where Chase actually threatens to arrest someone with his handy-dandy net gun. Instead, the vast majority of PAW Patrol missions are rescue operations, often of other animals, who do not talk. Why is no one looking into the fact that only dogs can talk in this world?
I get it now. Raccoons look for food at night. That's why I went after the melons. Raccoons look for food at night. That's why I went after the melons. That's why I went after the melons.
Okay, maybe the creators of the show just don't understand how animals work. That's a possibility. Because of the vast array of perilous positions these people get themselves into, it's important to have a crew of pups suited to every task. In addition to Chase, there's Marshall, the firefighting Dalmatian, Sky, the pilot cockapoo, Rocky, the recycle mutt, Zuma, the woefully underused water rescue chocolate lab, and of course, Rubble, the bulldog with no regard for public property.
On the double!
3, 2, 1, go!
As an aside, Marshall is easily the MVP of the series, and if any other character is your favorite, you need therapy and/or Jesus. He's a master of physical comedy,
How about them apples?
has a heart of gold, and is completely unproblematic because he isn't a fucking cop. And honestly, he has some half-decent puns for a show aimed at preschoolers.
Watch out! Whoa! Look, I'm a corn dog.
Rubble, I just have questions. He never seems to need permits, and he just really reminds me of those scenes in The Sopranos where they're all standing around collecting fake union checks.
How am I? I got dust up the crack of my ass and I'm starving to death.
I'll accept votes for Sky since she's a true action hero, but since she's a girl, they try to shoehorn in a romance between her and the cop, Chase.
Is that Sky's bathing cat? Huh? No. Be right back.
This romance has a disturbing number of compilations on YouTube. Like, these compilations are unhinged. They are really reaching on some of these.
Baby, I'm dancing in the dark.
I just get the vibe that Sky is some kind of trad wife who posts on Facebook about backing the blue and humanizing the badge.
Dear officer, I want you to know that I see you. I see you as you watch mainstream media crucify your character while minimizing your cause.
Personally, my vote is Marshall. Besides, he's a real ladies' man.
I suppose I could sleep out here with you guys.
That goose definitely wants his fire hose. But back to Chase. In presenting Chase, a police dog next to all these other dogs doing rescue things, Paw Patrol paints the police as something they're not. The police don't need to play a major role in these kinds of emergencies, and there are a few reasons for that. First off, in the United States, there's no national standardized medical or first aid training for police officers, despite the fact that most 911 medical calls across the country will result in an automatic response from the nearest police department. In her article, Why Isn't Every Cop Trained to Administer First Aid?, journalist Layla Barghouti lays out a number of systemic issues with police readiness in emergency medical situations. Barghouti describes the tragic story of Dan Queers Franklin, an unarmed black man who was shot by an officer and succumbed to his gunshot wounds after several police officers didn't even bother to try to administer first aid afterwards. Police are often hesitant to get involved in medical emergencies, something that is ingrained in them during training. As Reserve Officer and Emergency Physician Lawrence Heiskell wrote in Police Magazine, quote, "Many were also not eager to render even the limited first aid they had been taught. These officers had the mindset that attempting to provide any medical care would get them in trouble. Furthermore, many officers were told by their supervisors not to get involved in medical care for fear of being sued, fired, and/or put in jail." In the words of Barghouti, quote, "Like many aspects of policing, deciding when to treat someone injured in the field comes down to one thing: the officer's discretion." The police are not a one-size-fits-all tool that can respond to every crisis. They don't have the training to help with medical emergencies, they don't have the training to fight fires, or to help in conservational cleanup. All things that Chase is called upon to do in Paw Patrol.
Ruff! Winch!
We know that the police are already called in too many situations. An analysis in Seattle of 911 calls in 2020 determined that, quote, "up to half the calls Seattle police received can be responded to without armed sworn officers," and has led to the city creating a triage response system to deal with issues that don't require an armed officer's presence. It's important to remember, police are armed soldiers. That's what they are. You call the police and someone with a gun is going to show up. Mark Jones, a former police officer and federal agent, told Layla Barghouti, quote, "For generations, cops have been basically the brute squad. That's their job, to come in and break stuff up. Police aren't needed and frankly don't need to waste their time on many of the issues we ask them to respond to. But we have an expectation of the police, curated by shows like Paw Patrol, which show children that the police can and should respond to every call. That all you need to do,
just yelp for help."
It's commonly understood that the mission of the police is to protect and serve, the motto that the LAPD adopted in 1963. But the police don't actually have to respond to calls to help at all, and all too frequently, do not. Just take the shooting earlier this year in Uvalde, Texas. Police refused to engage with the shooter for over an hour while he shot and killed children.
There was a standoff for almost an hour before police forced their way into a classroom and killed him. The question remains why they couldn't get to the gunman sooner.
Video footage shows them standing around, checking their phones, and getting hand sanitizer. Always smart to sanitize. Always smart to sanitize. The public response to Uvalde has been a mixture of shock and anger. Nobody is happy with the police in this situation, including other law enforcement officers.
I think the report correctly stated it was a systematic failure. There were a lot of things that went wrong, a lot of things that we have a lot of explaining to do, a lot of things to justify to the community of Uvalde. Yeah. But we as a profession did not do well that day.
But the dirty little secret is that the police have no obligation to leap into action, something that courts routinely hold up. In 2011, Maxim Gelman went on a 28-hour stabbing spree in New York City, killing 4 and injuring 5 more. His spree wasn't stopped by the police, but by a man named Joseph Lozito, Gelman's final would-be victim. Gelman attacked Lozito on the subway, and Lozito wrestled the man to the ground, and you know what? He can probably explain this better than I can.
My name is Joe Lozito, and one day in 2011, my morning commute was interrupted by the tail end of a 28-hour-long stabbing spree. The only thing separating the engineer and myself was a wall. It turned out there were 2 cops on the other side of the door, lying in wait in case Gelman hopped on this train. I found out later they'd recognized him, but they didn't charge out to stop him. You'd expect 2 armed cops to, I don't know, maybe do something about a wanted fugitive spree killer that they were on the train specifically to arrest, but they stayed put.
That's right. There were 2 police officers stationed specifically to stop Gelman, but hid from him as he attacked Lozito, who did the real heroing, suffering a ton of stab wounds. Not until after Lozito had disarmed Gelman did the police come out from their hiding spot and help. One of the officers testified in the grand jury hearing that he hadn't intervened because he thought Gelman had a gun instead of a knife. And look, I get it, that's scary. But that's because I'm some liberal snowflake who makes YouTube videos, not a cop cosplaying as the Punisher.
If you, Mr. Cop A. Policington, thinks this insane, drug-addled murderer has a gun, and he's sitting on a train bound for Times Square, don't you want to stop him at all costs? So yeah, I decided to sue the NYPD.
When Lozito sued the NYPD for, not doing their job, he lost. Not because Judge Margaret Chan didn't believe him or because he didn't have evidence, but because, as Chan described, quote, no direct promises of protection were made to Mr. Lozito, so the police had, quote, no special duty to protect him. This policy had actually been enshrined by a Supreme Court case in 2005, Castle Rock v. Gonzalez. Jessica Lanahan Gonzalez obtained a permanent restraining order against her ex-husband, barring him from visiting their children unannounced. The restraining order called for the police to, quote, use every reasonable means to enforce this restraining order, which, to me, sounds like a promise of protection, but I don't know shit about fuck.
I don't know shit about fuck.
Anyway, when Miss Gonzalez reported that her husband had kidnapped their children, officers did not act and told her to wait it out. Eventually, her ex-husband showed up at the police station and opened fire before being shot dead himself. Their 3 daughters were found dead in his car. In a 7-2 decision, the Supreme Court determined that the police department could not be sued for failing to enforce a restraining order. Man, tough vid for SCOTUS. In the words of Lynn A. Combs in the Hastings Law Journal, writing about the case back in 2006, quote, the traditional theory of no general police duty to protect is premised on the notion that law enforcement agencies have limited money and resources, and should be afforded discretion in determining how best to allocate those resources. Furthermore, regardless of a decision as to which types of crimes should be and are a priority, limited law enforcement resources are not best spent defending against potential litigation rather than putting more officers on the streets. You got that? Police can't have an obligation to help people because that would open them up to accountability. They don't want to spend time or money in court. Unless it's to defend police misconduct, since, New York City alone spends nearly $170 million in civil settlements every single year covering up police misconduct. Though those are resources well spent. But to get back to PAW Patrol, the show leans into the idea that the police are duty-bound to bravely put their lives on the line. Chase is a regular action hero. He's deployed more than any other pup, almost regardless of the mission at hand.
Looks like someone's inside of it. It's the achoo! Achoo! The Kitten Catastrophe crew? Yep, them.
In the film, his entire narrative arc centers around him finding the courage to put himself in harm's way, bravely doing all sorts of things that any police officer that could not, and frankly should not be expected to do. PAW Patrol is communicating to its audience that the police are suited for any job and should be involved in all manner of emergencies, even when we know that there are other pups that could fill the same role better.
I can't believe I forgot to disconnect my parachute. It's Air Rescue 101.
Like, Chase, buddy, you don't need to do air rescue. Y'all literally have an entire character dedicated to air things.
Let's take to the sky.
Your police truck has a winch on it, even though there's a character for construction.
Ask questions. Leave no stone unturned.
Then I'll get the stone turning attachment for my dozer.
But he's Chase, the main character, so there's always something for Chase to do. All the while, the franchise reinforces the idea that the police need to be involved in all of these things, and that they are well equipped to deal with these issues.
I know Adventure City has been tough for you, but I also know that deep down,
You were born to be a hero.
And the effects of this fundamental misunderstanding of who and what the police are compounds on itself. The more things we think the police have covered, the more likely we are to respond to any crisis by pushing more money into policing, even if the police are not a great solution. As Ramenda Cyrus writes for the American Prospect, quote, "People are still expected to call the police, and many still do, especially given the lack of alternatives. But to criticize their effectiveness in solving crimes in the aftermath furthers the propaganda. It assumes that the police are acting in the interest of the public, when there is no precedent that says they have to." And you know what? I haven't even gotten to what rankles me the most about PAW Patrol. Look, I've covered a lot of TV shows on this channel, and some of them have been very, very bad.
Gotta take a leak.
How many times do I have to tell you, caffeine is a diuretic?
A what?
Just switch to decaf.
What fun would that be? Not as much fun as waiting around on this lowlife. Where the hell is he?
So, I want you to know that I don't say this lightly. PAW Patrol is the single worst television show I've ever seen. I mean, that's part of the reason this video is so long. If I have to watch it, I'm going to make damn sure that I get everything I have to say out of the way, and then nobody can ever ask me about PAW Patrol ever again. You can stop writing in the comments. I don't want to, I'm done. I put on the hat, okay? I took it seriously. So let's talk about how bad the show is. The music is terrible, and worse than being terrible, it's catchy. Forget about using dogs to torture prisoners at Guantanamo Bay. I bet they just play the PAW Patrol theme on loop. Parents, back me up.
Paw Patrol, whenever you're in trouble. Paw Patrol, we'll be there on the double.
Paw Patrol, be there on the double. Oh, but it's not just the main theme. Listen to this garbage song for an in-universe corn-themed Candy Crush Saga ripoff.
That's right, little raccoon. Let's dance to Corn Nibbly Crush.
The animation, also so cheap. I already mentioned how they apparently don't have the budget to animate the city, but even what they do animate tends to be really stiff. They tried to adjust for this in later seasons by putting every single pup's tail on a wagging loop cycle, but that almost makes me feel more nauseous and disoriented. I don't think I fully grasped how bad the animation was until I saw the film, which actually had some really cool looking fur, water, and cloud simulations. Like look at that water on Chase's fur. He looks like a dog, not some kind of weird plastic golem.
Attention, kiddies!
Roughly a quarter of every episode, straight up reused footage. In a 12-minute episode, the first minute is the theme song and opening sequence. The pups going up the tower and lining up is the same footage every time, as is their deployment, all of which takes another 2 minutes or so. I don't even think the people making this show really like it. In researching this video, I found this one absolute gem, and it's long, but I have to read the entire quote to you.
Whew, you ever want to shoot heroin at the end of the day?
Someone asks, after a particularly long set of takes oozing the treacly goo of writers' endlessly upbeat enthusiasm.
Yes,
comes the answer.
Except that people in kids' television can't afford heroin.
Ironically, for all the attention to storytelling Dodge and her team put into making a show that 4-year-olds will remember for the rest of their lives, and that is her stated aim, children's entertainment is often seen as a means to an end and so ranks low on the entertainment pay and status ladder.
HBO, FX, Showtime, broadcasters, sports, and then kids.
A longtime Hollywood agent explained recently, ranking the steps from top to bottom. He thought for a moment.
And then porn, I guess.
Like, did they not realize they were on the record talking about a kids show? Are they really just phoning it in that hard?
I bet she swiped the Paw Patroller.
She did take the Paw Patroller. She's calling it the Cheetah Patroller now.
I also suddenly feel very self-conscious wearing this outfit after that quote. I feel like I'm taking this much more seriously than the creators of the show, and reading the word porn really has me concerned about wearing a collar and a police hat. You know what? I'm gonna lose the hat and collar. Okay. Whew. That's better. But the real issue with Paw Patrol, as a bad TV show, is that it's bad at teaching lessons to kids. Kids' shows teach kids about how the world works, not necessarily in terms of policing or the socioeconomic contours of neoliberalism, but in terms of relationships. They teach kids what it means to be friends with someone, how to respect other people and apologize for mistakes, how to work through obstacles, how to be people. Think of Mr. Rogers.
You know, human beings learn best and most from other human beings. That's all part of being human. And we learn best from people who really care about us, people we really like.
Or Sesame Street.
Yeah, but how can I have different feelings at the same time?
Abby, these are strong emotions, and it's all right to feel different ways all at once.
But Paw Patrol doesn't do any of that. Ryder and his pups always get along. They never have to overcome any team chemistry issues, and outside of the movie, none of the characters even really expresses much in the way of sadness or fear.
That's right. You've all been very good pups.
The pups might have different themes and are different breeds, but none of them have distinct personalities. Even my main man Marshall is basically just a slightly clumsier version of the other dogs. And that's what makes him the best. It's literally the smallest of distinctions, the bare minimum. Clumsy isn't even a personality type.
Oh! Whoa! Hey! I did it! Whoa! Whoa!
But portraying everything as sunny all the time always just doesn't provide kids with any kind of helpful modeling. As Danny DiPlacido described it in Forbes, quote, "In the world of Paw Patrol, good characters are always nice, and bad characters are always naughty, and the only source of conflict comes from interactions between the two. Paw Patrol depicts a world where your friends will never let you down or hurt you in any way whatsoever. And in the playground, that's just not true." So, like, what the fuck? If Paw Patrol doesn't really care about teaching kids or making a show that doesn't make them want to shoot up heroin after a long day of recording, then what's the point? So remember how, at the beginning of this video, I presented a bunch of hyper anti-capitalist critiques of Paw Patrol and then kinda undercut them by saying it was over the heads of kids? Well, here's the part where I radicalize you. Oopsie! In all seriousness, I do think that there's actually a bit more to that critique than I let on. The main reason for that is because the show isn't so much a TV show, clearly, but a commercial. The only true purpose of Paw Patrol is to sell toys. This is the reason the show feels so repetitive. Repetition is essential to advertising, slowly burrowing a product into the mind of its audience.
Paw Patrol!
New Paw Patrol vehicles are ready to rescue. Go Zuma and Rocky. We need all the pups with their different vehicles to save the day. You can collect them all.
Those reuse sequences always feature the vehicles of the show in elaborate Iron Man-esque suit-ups, always with a corresponding toy.
Now Chase is on the case and the Paw Patrol is on a roll.
The job is too big, no puppy's too small!
Remember how I mentioned the pups of Paw Patrol being designed to look cuter and cuter? Well, it wasn't just to make them more adorable. It was also to make them look more like toys. Let's expand on that quote from earlier. Quote, "In early sketches, the pups' hind legs are hinged, as real dogs are. In the final product, they're straight. It makes them more puppy-like," Dodge says, not to mention more toddler-like, but it also makes them more capable of standing up as toys. The characters in the show, in other words, began to look more and more like toys. Parenting columnist for The Guardian, Seamus O'Reilly, notes how the toys of old were often disconnected from their intellectual property.
Batman figures seem to sport non-canonical outfits, culled from an alternate universe where Gotham's Dark Knight was forever undertaking very important missions we somehow never get to see on the page or screen, requiring officially licensed suits with names like Batman, Arctic Adventure, Batman, Lava Mayhem, or Batman, Offshore Tax Accountant Extreme. No, the genius of Paw Patrol is that they create toys that look exactly like the characters, vehicles, and sets of the show by making said objects all look like toys in the first place.
Now, the history of children's cartoons as glorified commercials is long, perhaps most exemplified by the Transformers series.
But the evil Decepticons have a secret new weapon, Shockwave.
The Transformers, robots in disguise.
But PAW Patrol has streamlined the process to wild success. Ronan Harari, along with the other co-founders of Spin Master Corp., the company that makes PAW Patrol, have all become billionaires off what is now the 4th largest toy maker in the world. Harari is pretty upfront about creating the company's entertainment division purely to sell toys, after seeing the success brought about by their joint venture with Sega Toys, Bakugan.
Bakugan gave us the ability to have characters, storyline, so it really launched us into the whole entertainment space.
So, PAW Patrol is ultimately about selling a bunch of cop dog toys to children. So what? Kids be playing, right? Is it really such a big deal? Well, I think that the commercial aspect of the show is made a lot more interesting by the fact that it focuses on the police. To understand this, it's useful to look at how and why American policing systems were created in the first place. There are several historical influences. In the South, policing has a direct ancestry to slave patrols. I think a bunch of people learned this during the BLM protests of 2020, and if you didn't, now you know. But hold up, I'm not letting northern states off the hook. Northern states modeled their policing systems after English policing in the early 19th century, which sounds better. It's fancy and European. But you have to remember that, at the time, Britain was the largest empire the world has ever seen. That British society was built just as much off the extraction of labor and resources as the slave-owning South. And as northern states built up their industrial economy in the 1800s, they turned to this model to create their police. As Professor of History Sam Matrani observes in his History of the Chicago Police Department, quote, "In the South, the closest thing to a police force was the slave patrols. Then, as northern cities grew and filled with mostly immigrant wage workers who were physically and socially separated from the ruling class, the wealthy elite who ran the various municipal governments hired hundreds and then thousands of armed men to impose order on the new working class neighborhoods. The police were designed to keep the working class in check, to provide a buffer between the haves and the have-nots. In both the South and the North, police came from a desire of the ruling class to protect their stuff and maintain their labor force, whether they were wage workers or outright slaves. The police are designed to uphold the interests of the wealthy, and that's something we see all over their actions, even today. They have been used to extensively break up labor strikes and unions, and over the past 2 years, we've seen the disparity in police responses to left and right-leaning protests. I noted earlier how the NYPD Strategic Response Group has seen its mission shift from counterterrorism to breaking up protests, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. The nonprofit organization Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project, ACLID, tallied American protests and found that this was borne out in the data.
And what they found is that law enforcement was twice as likely to engage with left-wing protests, that is, try to break them up and send people home. They were also more likely to use force when they did that. So 34% of the time they were using force against the right-wing protests that they tried to break up. 51% of the time they were using force against the left-wing protests that they tried to break up. And when the researchers went and looked at, the peaceful protests and the non-peaceful protests, they told me that even the peaceful Black Lives Matter protests had more police response and heavier police response than the right-wing protests.
There are tons of examples in America of how the police are weaponized against the poor, the ways they make life harder for the houseless, or how the entire bail system can keep the poor imprisoned without a conviction. But I want to point out 2 examples that I think are some of the cleanest illustrations of how the priorities of the police are to keep the working class in check. The first is civil asset forfeiture, a practice in which money and assets can be seized under mere suspicion of their relationship to a crime.
In civil forfeiture, if the government thinks that your property is somehow connected with a crime, they can take it, and they can do all this without ever charging you with a crime, much less convicting you with one.
And the only way to get that seizure back is to go to court and affirmatively prove your innocence. The police don't need a conviction or even an arrest. They just need to say that they thought you did it. So much for innocent until proven guilty. And the police routinely seize more assets and money through civil forfeiture than burglars do. Here's a police department social media post making it seem like a good thing that they took $100,000 from a woman without even arresting her by posting a picture of it next to, hey look, it's a police dog.
Are you wondering, where does all this cash and property end up? In most places, law enforcement keeps it, and they use it to buy equipment or pay for building repairs, or even pay salaries and overtime. This is a clear conflict of interest. It creates a perverse profit incentive that can distort law enforcement.
That clip I used of a detection dog dubiously alerting earlier, that whole news segment started because Tennessee police were using drug dogs to search vehicles and seize money to pay themselves.
Well, as you know, this part of our investigation began when a California police officer and his wife contacted us about their own experience right here in Middle Tennessee, an experience with officers looking for suspected drug money that they can seize to fund their agency.
Civil forfeiture is an offshoot of the war on drugs, and because of its very mechanics, it targets people with cash on hand, who tend to be poorer. And civil forfeiture isn't the only kind of theft that outpaces what we think of as theft. According to the Economic Policy Institute, in 2012, the total amount of money lost to all robberies, from bank holdups to muggings, totaled just under $341 million. That number isn't the amount recovered, it's the total number reported to the police. That's a lot of money. However, that number is dwarfed by the amount of money stolen through wage theft, money that is owed to workers by law but not paid by employers. In 2012, the amount recovered, not reported, but actually recovered in wage theft was over $933 million, almost 3 times greater than the amount reported in all robberies. Despite being a far, far greater seizure of wealth, wage theft has historically been the domain of government agencies and civil courts, not the police or criminal investigations. Those massive police departments we spend billions on, they don't exist to govern all theft, just the theft poor people commit. The police exist to uphold the interests of the wealthy. So, by design, they don't patrol the massive amounts of money stolen from workers, and, in fact, steal more from average citizens than the amount reported in burglaries and robberies. The police don't exist to help you. They aren't your friends.
You don't help the police. They're not on your side. Don't you understand this shit yet? They work for the state. They'll plant fake evidence. They'll put a loaded gun in the hands of an unarmed man they've shot to death. They harass minorities. They brutalize people. They deny people their rights, and they lie about it all in court all the time. They perjure themselves routinely.
Now, this doesn't mean that I'm advocating for anarchy or a society with no mechanism for law enforcement whatsoever. I'm not. What I am doing is trying to cut through the myths we tell ourselves about the police from an increasingly young age, so that we can be more honest about the challenges we face and can come up with solutions that actually address them. I think that when we think about PAW Patrol, yes, this video is still ostensibly about PAW Patrol, the way commerce and policing tie together makes the lefty critiques from the show a lot more powerful than when I first brought them up approximately 72 hours ago. PAW Patrol epitomizes the relationship between capital and the police, both in its text and in the actual material conditions surrounding the show. In a truly symbiotic relationship, PAW Patrol is a commercial for toys, chiefly police-themed toys, an institution dedicated to the enforcement of capitalism, a system that has made the executives of Spin Master billions of dollars, while workers in Vietnamese toy factories make the slimmest fraction of that amount. And the creators of the show can't even afford heroin. What is this world coming to? PAW Patrol paints a rosy image of the police because, well, it benefits them to do so. And that relationship makes the critiques about the show's themes of privatization far more potent.
I can't even with all this negativity. It seems like nobody wants to work these days.
If you think I'm reading way too much into a kid's franchise, here they are joking about how they're able to fund the police force through the sale of merch.
How can we afford this place?
Officially licensed PAW Patrol merchandise. This stuff sells like hotcakes.
It's a joke that's eerily on the nose. No, the PAW Patrol industrial complex isn't some corporation secretly funding the police from the shadows. But it is pretty explicitly encouraging kids to play make-believe games to align their empathy with the police. An institution that, by design, serves to protect profits before it protects people. And the show is specifically promoting a version of that institution that is beholden to no politicians or oversight.
The paws uphold the laws!
All right, Paw Patrol is on a roll!
It's not just that Paw Patrol makes the police look cute and cuddly. It's that doing so in this environment helps perpetuate a system of inequality that creates billionaires. Those billions then feed more stories about whitewashing the police, creating a feedback cycle. Capitalism is a system dependent on a class hierarchy of workers and owners, and Paw Patrol demonstrates the close relationship between capitalism and the police that uphold it. Its status as a glorified toy commercial makes it more nakedly capitalist than most TV shows, and the product it sells encourages kids to play with the toys that put them in the shoes of the police. Paw Patrol tells kids that police dogs are great, even though they are used to harass and brutalize black and brown and poor people. Paw Patrol tells kids that the police are happy to jump into action to save your life when they have no legal obligation to do so, and often are called to emergencies that they are ill-equipped to help solve. Paw Patrol tells kids that the police are there to protect them, when the police really exist to protect profits. And it makes billions for its trouble. It'd be ingenious if it wasn't so stupid.
Oh, Chico, let up! Oh, Chicky! Oh, Chicky!
Now, this has been a lot of time to dedicate to destroying a children's cartoon. This took me a lot longer to research and edit and make than I'd care to admit, but it was all possible due to the amazing support and generosity of my patrons over on Patreon. This video was promised as a goal over there, and on my Patreon you can find a bunch of bonus stuff, outtakes, and reading lists for this entire Copaganda series. If you join up, you'll also get early access to videos and live Q&As and occasional watch-alongs. Personally, I'd love to get to a point where I don't need to run YouTube ads on these videos, since I have no control over what Google is going to run, and sometimes they even run police recruitment ads, which, I don't know, isn't really what I'm going for with this series. Right now, that's not financially feasible, but if that mission sounds interesting to you, head over to patreon.com/skipintro and throw in a buck to help support the channel. Also, this is my 10th Copaganda episode, and somehow there are still more cop shows to talk about. I have a bunch of other videos planned, including Line of Duty, Top Gun Maverick, Law & Order, and all those shows that tackle mental health and profiling like Criminal Minds, Hannibal, and Mindhunter. So, yeah, help me out, please. Please? As always, thanks for watching. Please share, like, and subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your therapist. The next video in the Copaganda series is either going to be on the anti-corruption cops in Line of Duty and We Own the City, or the fascist propaganda of Top Gun Maverick. A movie, I know. What a concept. Why would I cover a movie? I don't know. Which, you'll have to wait to see the video to find out. Woo! Comment in the comments which one you care more about, and I'll do that one first, probably. I don't know. We'll see. Talk at you again soon.